So it seems that after the farm was lost financially, they moved to Montana. In around 1910, they arrived in Missoula, Montana. It was there that Theodore got a job with the railroad in Missoula, or based in Missoula, firing a steam locomotive for the Northern Pacific Railroad. We are not sure of the details, the timing of the chronology here, but 1910 they lived in Missoula, and he was working for the Northern Pacific Railroad. Now we're talking about Theodore now, and he, though, moved to Canada in around 1912 and got a job with the railroad there, and by 1914 was working for I don't know which railroad it was, but he had well, I'll let Ray go on about his job in Canada working for the railroad.
He was the engineer on the train that first went across the new tracks that were built from Edmonton towards the Peace River towards Alaska. And en route, the railroad track went on the south side of Lesser Slave Lake. And unknown to those who were doing the tracks, they laid the tracks on permafrost on the south side of Lesser Slave Lake. And the track bed would not stay stable as it was resting on permafrost, which moves at the frost line. So he came with this track in 1913, I think it was, and the track moved underneath the train. So in the middle of the 40-mile lake on the south side, he derailed the train on the track that moved underneath the train. So they started a depot there to clean up the mess, and then it developed into the town of Faust, which is on the map on the south side of Lesser Slave Lake, about in the middle of the lake, which was 40 miles long.
So some details about the town, and Ray will explain a little bit about how the town developed, to how it grew and how it has shrunk but still remains a town.
The town of Faust grew to about 3,500 in a few years because there were 9 fish canneries around this 40-mile-long lake. Then around the fish canneries grew up a mink growing industry because they could feed the mink with entrails from all the fish, so they wouldn't have to buy food for the mink. Then the fish canneries fished out the lake. So there is only one fish cannery left, and is on the west end of the Lesser Slave Lake, which also is included in the First Nation, the Indian nation in Canada. Well, then the mink industry died also because 8 of the 9 fisheries quit. And also at that time, there was a movement against the killing of little mink for coats. So the town shrunk down to what was about 350 in the very few years after the fish canneries quit.
So at this time then, when the train derailed and the town eventually started was around 1914. That was also the year that John Faust passed away of cancer in Missoula. And we only surmise that his brother Friedhof and sisters Florence and Hilda, that one of them or all of them were caring for him, as well as their mother Blenda, who was also in Montana, but we're not sure who was caring for who. But he passed away in 1914.